Hello Tenno, Zelp here, and today we're gonna talk about the new Warframe Revenant and also a new weapon called the Phantasma. Now this is going to be a very quick first look kind of video. It's not even going to be scripted, it's going to be a spontaneous mess, which I hope you guys can bear through and hopefully you'll benefit from it. Now the whole idea of why I'm making this video is because I know a lot of you guys are either crafting it or still hunting for it. I heard it's quite a grind, so maybe this will help you to figure out what to expect and you can start your planning and what you want to do with it. Also for those newer players that have a choice to decide if they want to invest the time to get this Warframe now or later, hopefully this video is going to help you too. With that said, let's jump right in and talk about his abilities. Now, I did not put in too much effort and time into researching him because just like most newer Warframes, they are very prone to being subjected to reworks depending on what the community have to say and depending on what DE thinks. So we are not going to get into numbers. We're just going to briefly, I'm going to bring you through the abilities and yeah, basically that's it. Okay, so first of all, he has a passive. I'm not too sure if it's displayed here. Let me check. Yeah, there you go, passive. Shield depletes, smashes nearby enemies with a knockdown shockwave. So basically every single time his shield is removed, it will cause a stun, a wave of stun that hits the enemies around. I feel like this one is good for testing with chargers. So we're gonna bring in a bunch of chargers. Let me just get a full amount of chargers. I'm gonna remove my invincibility. I'm actually gonna reduce the level a little bit, maybe 40. Oh, 40. Simulate. Okay, so I'm gonna stand right here, get whacked, and we're gonna see it happen. God. There you go. So you realize that the enemies nearby got the proc, right? But geez, I'm dying. But the enemies further away does not. So there is a range limit, and this range limit is not given to us on wiki yet. But from my testing, so what I did is I mark an enemy, and then I try to go, or I mark a further enemy, and then I check. Oh man, let's say this one. Right, you can see that at 10 meters it did not stun him. So I actually did this beforehand. It's around about 8 meters radius. So 7 meters he gets stunned. It's around 9 meters he doesn't get stunned. Oh my god. I actually did a test which I thought was kind of interesting. Was that I put in a lot of shield recharge mods, something that can replenish your shield really quickly. And I sort of like, you can sort of AFK in front of an enemy as long as his damage does not hurt your health too much. So he'll get a stun, and during that stun duration, you manage to replenish enough shields to take another hit to proc another stun. So you just basically keep stunning the enemy and then replenish, and then stun and replenish. So yeah, that might be a thing at lower levels, but at high levels it's definitely not going to work. Okay, so that is all for its passive. Now let's take a look at his first ability. It's called Enthrall. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Or is it Thralled? Anyways, I'm gonna sort of call it zombified, if you guys allow me to. Basically converts an enemy into an ally, but not a pure ally in the way that, because you can still damage it. But it's not really like a third party as well, like radiation does, because if it's a ancient healer, for example, using this ability on an ancient healer actually allows you to get the buff from the ancient healer. So it's something in between. Now what this basically does, or what it's capable of doing, is that an enemy that is affected by this ability, or called Thrall, they can hit other enemies and cause them to turn as well. So picture zombie apocalypse, one zombie bite a human, the human turn into a zombie, that human bite another human, that human turn into zombie. But sadly, even though it's not mentioned here or on wiki yet, it is capped. So I believe it's capped at about 4 zombies. So once you have 4 on the map, you cannot cast this ability on any more enemies. It will say like invalid target, or the enemies itself cannot seem to proc and cause others to turn. However, with that said, I did manage to get up to 5 zombie ones, which I don't really know how I did that. It was in a mission while I was streaming, so I thought the cap was 5, but then I couldn't cast after 4. Testing in Simulacrum seems to only get me up to 4, so that is what they could do. Now if the enemy is a zombie, or if it's Enthralled and it dies while it's a zombie or Enthralled, it will unleash a damaging pillar. So a pillar will form, and that pillar will do 1000 damage per second with a radius of 2 meters. This damage is actually really good, because think about the damage, and it's per second, so every second is actually causing that damage. The only problem is the radius is kind of small. It's only 2 meters. This means that even with range mods, you cannot really increase it too much because it's really small. It's only 2 meters. But with that said, you can actually think of some synergies, which I will show you in just a bit. Now I'm going to show you this ability with chargers as well. I think they are a good specimen to show you. Now when you cast this ability on an enemy, you'll see something pop up on their heads, like horns or something. It kind of looks like floating sentinels. So yeah, so it hits an enemy, that enemy get affected, and then it hits another enemy, that enemy get affected. If you look at the top right side corner, you can actually see the number of enemies being affected or zombified, right? The good thing about this ability is that zombies among zombies, they do not hit each other, so they do not end up killing each other and end the spread. Okay, sadly, if you do this in the Simulacrum, you can't actually kill them as well. So what happened is that if you come over here and you click kill all enemies, it doesn't work. Interesting though, you can summon another 20 charger, and so in a way you can have up to 24 enemies on the field at a time right now, but we're not going to talk about that. So right now they are hitting each other again, but my ability has worn off. So what this tells me, or what this tells us, is that, oh crap, I was trying to land on the top platform. Okay, what this tells us is basically that when your first ability duration ends, everything ends. This means when your first zombie, for example, hits another zombie, that zombie does not have a new countdown for this ability. It will start at its owner's duration. Alright. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the pillar. So let me show you the pillar. So I cast it on one of the enemies. It's kind of hard to see. One of them has that horn thing. There you go. So he got killed, and you see this light of pillar. If you see, let's see if I can blur it. There you go. You see some of the enemies that managed to get close enough took like 2,000 plus damage, 2,800 something ish damage. The reason why I got so much damage is because I am actually currently running a high power strength build. So that damage is affected by power strength. Let me just kill them real quick. And yeah, so that's basically what it is. It causes a pillar and it deals damage per second. You can sort of like think of synergies where, let's say you have a Nidus, and Nidus sees that pillar. He can use lava and pull all the enemies to that pillar, causing it to do a lot of damage. I think that is definitely a pretty cool combo. Maybe with Hydroid's pull, I haven't tested this yet because I need like a squad, or I need someone to test it with me. If Hydroid pulls an enemy in and kills it in the pool, I think maybe there might be a pillar there as well, and it kills all the rest of the enemies really fast. So a lot of these things you can start planning, and I don't know, maybe after a month or so we'll come back to this this Warframe and we'll talk about him again after any major rework, after he's a little bit more stable. Let's take a look at the next ability. The next ability is called Mesmer Skin. Becomes enveloped in sentient energy, redirecting damage and stunning all those who dares attack. Stunning enemies can be enthralled at no energy cost. Wait, stunned enemies can be enthralled at no energy cost. Yeah, so basically if the enemy gets stunned, you can use your first ability with 0 energy cost. That's what he meant. Now it says redirecting damage, so it's very accurate when they say that, because you don't actually take any damage at all. All the damage is redirected to the enemy. I believe there's even a multiplier, so they actually take a little bit more damage than they are causing you to take. So let me just show you real quick on how it looks like. For this, I'm not going to use a charger because there is no range limit, if I'm not mistaken. So you can use something like a lancer, for example. Let's just bring one out. Okay, use my second ability, go somewhat in range, and you can see that when he shoots me, he misses. There you go. He falls asleep. It looks more like a sleep than a what do you call, a stun. But yeah, and then it's like, oh, he wakes up, right? One thing I actually forgot to check, which I'm really curious right now, so I'm gonna do it on the spot, is that when the enemy is stunned, is it subjected to a finisher? I'll just use whatever weapon, man. Let's just do this quick. Okay, so cast it. He got stunned. Let's see if it's subjected to finisher damage. Okay, you can't activate a finisher. It's not subjected to finisher damage. Too bad, too bad. So you realize that the number of hits that I can take is written at the ability. So right now it says 15, but originally it's only 6. So this value goes up with power strength. So again, I'm running a high power strength build, so you can actually see this in action. Yeah, so you can block damage or block hits. It can be really, really high damage and you still going to block it. Another thing that I didn't test, which I'm really curious right now, is a bombard. How would his damage play out, right? Because it's an explosive. So let's give it a go. Okay, 14. I can take 14 hits. So let it come. Yeah, seems like I do not take any damage at all, even from explosive, and you stun the bombard. So let's go to the next ability. Right, the next ability is Reave. Dash through enemies as a wall of sentient energy, leeching shields and health from any encountered, enhance for trial. Alright, so if the enemy is zombified, using Reave will drain health and shields from that enemy even more. If the enemy is just a normal enemy, it's supposed to drain like 40% shield and 40% health. Okay, so how it works with the numbers, I'm not very sure. Like 40% of the enemy's health or 40% of your own health, or how much exactly do you get extra when an enemy is zombified or enthralled, whatever you call it. So those calculations were not done yet. However, I'm going to show you how it looks like. So let's see. I don't actually need enemies, but basically you do this, press your third ability and you dash forward, right? It's kind of like Hydroid's wave. You can cancel the wave or the movement dash thing if you Reave. You can cancel it if you click the same ability twice. So if you want to stop, you just click it again and it stops. Whatever enemies it passes through, it will drain 40% shield, 40% health. That's according to the description. If it is zombified, you get more. Right? As simple as that. Okay, so now next one. Oh, and also the range can be increased. So how far you go is based on duration. So the higher your duration, the further you can actually dash to. Right? Now, the last ability of this Warframe. It's called Danse Macabre. Yeah, his ultimate skill. Now his ultimate skill basically caused him to turn around over and over again and deals damage to enemies like this. Right? The problem with this ability is that there's not much accuracy involved. You can see the laser going up and down, up and down, up and down. The range, however, seems to be really good, but it does point down a lot. So even with very high range, it's like it doesn't go that far because it's pointing down a lot. Another thing I like to talk about or say about this ability is that it doesn't seem to pass through walls from my testing. In fact, if there is, let's say, two enemies standing between, like one enemy standing between you and another enemy, the enemy behind might not even take damage as well. So there's that to consider. Another thing that you would like to know is that most pretty much all maneuvers except moving forward and back is disabled while doing this. You can't use your first ability, you can't use your second ability, but you can use your third ability. So that is something to think about. And I think that is a good added touch because while spinning, you're actually very vulnerable. Enemies can hit you, you still take damage normally, and you can die, right? You're not doing much, you're just walking around basically. So when your health is low, you can use your third ability to dash, reef, and suck health and shields. So I think it's a pretty interesting added touch. So now I'm going to talk about the damage type that this thing does. If the enemy has only health, this includes armored enemies, it will do corrosive damage. If the enemy has shields, it will do magnetic damage. And these are actually really good because anything that has health without shields, anything that does not have shields basically, it's either weak against corrosive or corrosive basically has no negative effects on it, right? Anything that has shields, however, is usually weak against magnetic or does not take any added damage from magnetic. So it's very good. Everything is positive in that sense. But this ability seems to be also kind of OP in the sense of damage, right? So let me show you what I mean. Simulate. Here we go. And here goes the turn. Level 150 heavy gunners, dead like that, right? And this ability can be further, the damage of this ability can be further increased if you click your left mouse button. So you actually see like a pillar appear on top of your head, and then it does even more damage. It does even more damage and it has even higher chance of proccing, in this case corrosive. So what you see there is crazy amount of damage for a very decent amount of energy. And that is one of the things that I think might be reworked. Because the damage is simply a little bit too high. However, with that said, if I am not running on invincible mode, you'll realize that he actually dies so freaking easy. So it's sort of like a trade. I'm not too sure if it's considered a balanced trade, but it's definitely a trade. You are very weak at that state when you're turning, but you do a crazy amount of damage. So it depends on how they want to think about it. It may be, oh my god, I can't even use it yet. But either way, I don't think I'll survive because I'm like 1 to 2 shots away from death. So that is the drawback with the fourth ability. So now if you were to use your first ability, Enthrall, on the enemy, and then kill it with your fourth ability, they will actually drop something that can provide you with overshields. So you see that? You can actually go over there and you can see that you have overshields now. And this also works on ally teammates, which is pretty good. The Phantasma. I adore this weapon, by the way. It's like becoming a weapon that I really want to use in most of my games. One of the things that I haven't tested is actually if it can go through objects. I don't think it does, but if it could, it would be so OP. So let me show you why is it good. Now the way I mod it, first of all, this weapon can reach 100% and it's considered a shotgun type weapon and also a beam type weapon. So what this means is shotguns, when it reaches 100% status chance, we talk this over and over again many times, it will proc for every pellet, for every beam, for every single thing, projectile that it comes out, it will have 100% chance of procking. Now when you have that many procs happening, what can benefit this the most? So I would say gas, I would say slash procs because they can stack, and also definitely corrosive because the more corrosive proc it does, the more shields it gets reduced, right? Other than that, there's really no other status effects that has benefit from proccing more. I guess toxin as well, because but when I say gas, I mean the toxin damage from the gas. So toxin, gas, slash, and also corrosive. If you think about it, radiation proccing more in in a short period of time doesn't really help much. Viral doesn't help much. What else do we have? Cold doesn't help much. What else do we have? Electric is actually kind of funny because once you proc an electric proc on the enemy, it will not take damage from another electric proc. So it's not really good with multiple damage. What else do we have? Magnetic, I guess magnetic might be good, but it's on shields, and shields are not really such a big problem. So one of the major problems in Warframe is definitely armor. So this is how I decided to go with. We have corrosive here, along with an added contagious spread to increase the chances of proccing corrosive. We have Hell's Chamber, ammo stock, something to increase the damage, something to increase the damage, and also for this one you have to pick one, because without that 60% you cannot reach 100% status chance. So you have to pick something to put it in. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I can use this shotgun savvy. No, I don't have enough. Wait, let me try this real quick. Yeah, so even with a 30%, it's not good enough. You see, the status chance is 99.7. This means not every single pallet is gonna proc. This one, for your primary shots, it's only 92.5. So you definitely need a 60%. There's actually a mod where when you are aiming, it actually does. Oh, acolytes. Yeah, it's an acolyte mod. There's an acolyte mod where when you're aiming, you have I think like 90% status chance. So that you can use that as well, and it should go well. But for this case, for this experiment, we're gonna use heat mod. All right, so I put heat mod. Ammo stock. Now this is kind of interesting because the way the weapon works is when you're charging, it drains your ammo. So I want you to pay attention to the ammo that I have 18 now with ammo stock. So if I hold it, it drains, and then it unleash a projectile that has a really crazy arc, which I kind of like. So it bends down and boom, like that, right? So the more it drains, the more damage it does, basically, or more projectile it produces. So when it explodes, it produces mini projectiles that kind of reminds me of Oberon's Smite, and it will track. If there's enemies nearby, it will go to the enemy and hit that enemy. Okay, so let's see this weapon in action. Let's bring one in right now. Level, yeah, max level of course. So this is the enemy. A few things I want to mention is that if you go too close, and it explodes in front of you, you'll die. So the explosion damage is affected by, as in we can take that explosion damage. So you don't want to go too close. But if you are too close, the impact from the weapon is so high that even the mini projectiles fly away. So for example, at this range, boom. And you realize that there is no mini projectiles coming back to hit the enemy. They basically go away and never come back. So only the initial hit hits. But if you stand a little bit further and you point a little bit higher, let it arc, let it slow down, hit the ground, then the mini, the mini projectiles won't be far away. Right? You can see them there and they'll come and hit that enemy. Do you see? It's pretty much like a one hit, a level 150. And the reload time is 0.5 seconds. So that means you can actually shoot this really fast. Wait, let me do that again. See how fast you can shoot this? Level 150 heavy gunner died in one hit. So is it good? Yeah. And in case you didn't realize, the heavy gunner actually got all of his armor stripped from that hit. Now it doesn't always kill in one hit. I was actually kind of lucky. In my testing, it doesn't always... Yeah, just take a look at that. Whoa. Right? So it depends on your damage as well. It depends a little bit on luck as well. Like how many were to proc corrosive. If a lot were to proc corrosive and then a heat were to proc, it could do like thousands of damage per tick on the heat itself. Okay, I guess I'll go through one more test, which I think you guys want to see, is what happens if there's a group. So when there's a group, it becomes slightly less effective. The initial damage is AoE, so that is still pretty good, but all the mini projectiles has to go to different, basically the damage is being spread, so it's not as good, I would say, not as effective. There you go. So you don't see too much happening. One of the reasons is because the mini projectile is being spread and the corrosive proc is being spread as well. If a lot of corrosive proc is being procced on one single target, his shields will be gone in an instant and he's going to take a lot of damage. But if every single one takes a little bit of that damage, it's not going to be... There you go, see that guy? The guy just died to a heat proc at 3.8k, I believe, per tick. As far as the game content is concerned, this weapon can be really, really good. Its primary fire, I actually did not talk about the primary fire. I'm so obsessed with his second. His primary fire is also ridiculous. The damage seems to rank up as it shoots, so it gets higher and higher as you shoot. It starts off like, it kind of reminds me of a little bit like the Chrome. So it starts off low. Oh my god. It starts low and then it gets higher and higher and higher. It could also be due to the corrosive proc, but I remember reading this on wiki as well. It does have some ranking up properties. Alright, so that is all for this video. I hope this sort of helps. And it helps you have a good idea of what you can do with the weapon. If you have found anything interesting, or if you have a really cool idea that you think might work with either the new Warframe or the weapon, do leave a comment and let me know about it, and maybe I'll make a video of it. And that is all for this video. Bye bye. Have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share with your friends. Click the bell. What else is there to do? Can you click the bell twice?